So we'll start just a couple of minutes earlier. My name's Pete Southwood. I'm a technical specialist and I work for Autodesk. I'm based in San Rafael, which at the moment, like the rest of the Bay Area, is getting pounded by a very nasty storm. So I'm only hoping things are welcome, plenty of seats. I'm hoping things are going to be okay when I get home, but I'm sure they are. And I'm a GISP, so I'm a certifiable GIS professional, based in San Rafael, like I said. The accent is from San Rafael. We talk like this in Northern California, but I wanted to just put you at your ease just for a second that I'm English. I don't want you sitting there thinking, I wonder what part of Australia, South Africa, New Zealand that I'm from. And by the way, for our native or our local audience, local being the United States, North America, I can't give you 20% off on your car insurance. For guests from abroad, that won't mean anything. Come and ask me later and we'll talk about it. So, my background, just extremely quickly. Best part, I was trying to figure out the other day, but I think it's the best part of 35 years in the CAD GIS industry. I started life with a product called RUCAPS, Riyadh University Computer-Aided Programming System, where there were Sigmex boxes and Pericom screens, and a typical seat of a CAD system was around $150,000. But the actual processing power of that seat, in fact, my electronic toothbrush has got more processing power, but the radiation that came from these machines, goodness knows how I had children, because the radiation just would have fried most things. Anyway, moving on, because that doesn't sound nice. The class summary. It's a lecture. You know, when I go to lectures, I just want to try and find out the one thing that's going to make me go back to the office and think, hey, that's really going to help me with my workflows, my business challenges, help me move forwards. But there's a lot of blah, 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 blah here. I'm not a blah person. I'm more of a practical, get in the weeds, not picks and clicks, but talk about the value and the benefits and the reasons why you should maybe consider this direction as opposed to another direction. That's where we come into how we can actually use and maximize on raster imagery, and using tools like Raster Design to actually take that imagery and do things with the imagery. Because a lot of this stuff is free. You know, I'm sure you never go to Google and borrow imagery, because you don't do that. You buy the imagery. But there's a lot of scanned historic documentation which could be very useful in contributing to your design. So we're going to go through Raster Design. I've got an hour and a half. I can quite happily spend 3 hours on Raster Design. I am happy and willing for you to scream out questions from the far corners of each room if you wish to. But again, going to try and go through as much as possible in the allotted time and try and be respectful to your allotted time. So at the end of this class, I want you to go away with a better understanding of what Raster Design does. Now, there are other tools in AutoCAD-based solutions where you can benefit from the raster imagery, and some of those I'm going to be talking about also. Where is it more beneficial to connect to imagery as opposed to insert imagery? Now, you may be sitting there thinking, and I will ask momentarily, but you may be sitting there thinking, well, hang on, what the heck is Pete on about with this connecting to imagery? Well, if you benefit from a tool called Civil 3D, how many people use Civil 3D? Quite a few of you. How many use AutoCAD Map? Or the map tools in Civil 3D, doesn't matter. AutoCAD, vanilla AutoCAD, okay. Commercial, I work for Autodesk, and I promise you this is the only bit of commercial I'm going to do. There is a better AutoCAD. There is a better AutoCAD for working with your data. Come and grab me at the exhibit area and I'll show you that AutoCAD. We've only had it 15 years, but in that AutoCAD there is a tool to enable you to connect to other data, including imagery, without the need to insert. So inserting a 2, 3, 4 gigabyte image within 2-3 seconds, not a problem. Panning or zooming around it, not a problem. Adding more images, not a problem. We can talk about the difference between the insert and connect, and I'll go through that with you today. But the understanding of raster design, how to take information, how to edit, clean up, pull information from that raster image to make it more sensible. Wouldn't it be great to take the contours from a United States Geological Survey quad map? Great. Wouldn't it be great to take an architectural scan drawing, look at a door, change the hand, basically mirror it on that raster image without the need to actually physically convert it to an AutoCAD drawing, because guess what? I just want to deal with the image. So we're going to go through those as much as we can today, including my favorite, OCR, Optical Character Recognition. I've got text on this drawing that would be useful to populate a Word document. Excuse me, it'd be useful to populate an AutoCAD drawing as M-text or text. Wouldn't it be great to have that information? Because guess what? There's a wealth of scanned stuff filling up boxes around organizations. So this is what we're going to be dealing with. There's the marketing blah, blah, blah speak. But raster design works on any AutoCAD-based product. You must have the same number, the same version. So if you like what you see today, because Pete's such a great presenter for Autodesk, and I'm going to slap Lynn Allen's legs when I see her, because her session's at the same time as mine. I shouldn't have told you that, because people are going to get up and walk out. But if you have any of these solutions, you want raster design, and you have, for example, 2012 MEP, you need a 2012 raster design. It's dependent on the core AutoCAD product. So I just want to highlight that to begin with. I know we're pushing suites. I promise this is not commercial, but just very quickly, if you benefit from the infrastructure design suite, you have raster design. If you benefit from the AutoCAD design suite, I almost said building design suite, the AutoCAD design suite, you have raster design. So I just want to show you there some of the value you get with these solutions. Pete, you're walking too far away from the... There we go. So, like I said earlier, we're going to be going through this insert versus FDO. FDO, we're very keen on acronyms within Autodesk, but FDO is the ability to actually insert, or rather connect. Actually stands for Feature Data Object, but basically a way of connecting to the information. Now, the challenge when we've got with insert, and I'm putting up the screenshots because showing you live is a bit boring, seeing somebody's machine and the processing. But if you're trying to insert an image, you're given a certain amount of memory within, or raster design uses a certain amount of memory, and then once it uses that memory for panning, zooming, all sorts of things, it starts eating into your paging and swapping. So inserting, still very quick, still get lots of value and benefit, but be aware that doing stuff with that image does start requiring more and more memory. And depending on the size of the image, you can start eating that memory up quite quickly. And if you're running other applications on your machine, Office, something else, then those other applications may or may not suffer. This is just screenshots of the amount of memory. I think it's, what is it, 25 meg? 8 meg? 25 meg, I think is the memory I was using, and then it starts eating it up. So note at the bottom, the default amount may degrade your system's performance. I just wanted to highlight that. It's not scaremongering you, but just if you're sitting there wondering why your 25 gigabyte image is causing a little bit of a challenge with your AutoCAD, it's because the memory requirements. But this FDO thing, I did say that for the AutoCAD users, excuse me, there is a better AutoCAD. And this better AutoCAD, by the way, commercial, allows multiple users to edit the same AutoCAD drawing at the same time. There is an anyone who tells you that you can't have two people editing the same AutoCAD drawing, they're wrong. There is an AutoCAD that will let you do that. And it happens to be called AutoCAD Map. MAP stands for More AutoCAD Productivity. It doesn't, but I thought I'd just throw that in there. So what Map does, it's got a rather useful tool, and this is where it becomes important to be able to insert or connect to information. It may be information from other systems, database information, line work from other systems. I'm going to use that GIS term. But of course, imagery is one of the benefits, actually pointing natively to that information. And that's what FDO allows me to do. And I'm going to go in this in big demonstration mode a little bit, just to give you a flavor. But again, it allows me to remove any form of error propagation, data loss, stale copies. You get the idea, because you can read. Supported formats. Now, I can bring up the dialog box. We can talk about supported formats. But the dialog box and the resolution of these screens and the projector is going to be a bit small. I just wanted to get it out of the way at the moment. So on the left, any non-AutoCAD Map based products, any non, so that's MEP, that's AutoCAD, they're the supported formats on the left. If you're running Raster Design with Civil 3D or AutoCAD Map, Civil 3D is built on top of AutoCAD Map, you've got the formats on the right as well included. Question? Oh.
Do you know if it's going to be supporting GeoPDFs?
So the question is, do I know, will it support GeoPDFs? At the moment, no. Will it in the future? I'm unable to answer that question for obvious reasons that may not seem clear, but I work for a public company, blah, 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 you know, statements, blah, blah, blah. A PDF is not a raster image. A PDF is a document. It isn't a standard raster format. There are great, we'll go into this maybe a little later on, but there are great tools to convert PDF to TIFF images. In fact, I found a tool yesterday for another customer. There are great tools to convert PDFs to DWGs. So the question was supporting of GeoPDF. Not at the moment, but that's all I can say. And I'm not trying to allude to anything for you. I'm sorry if that didn't answer your question properly, but it's a truthful question. Not that I would lie. I would never lie. So this is where I show me. Any questions so far on this horrible slide deck? I take that as a no. So this is where it gets really quite amusing, because you've got this little talking head at the top of this giant stage in a giant room dealing with the giant screens, and hey, I'm happy, but as long as you guys are, then we're golden. Excuse me. Okie dokie. So very quickly, I wanted to go through the process of showing you the insert as opposed to the connect, or the connect. For sanity's sake, let me just give you a flavor of what I've got on this machine. It's a normal, thank you very much, Hewlett-Packard as one of our sponsors, a normal machine, Windows 7, 8 gig of RAM. I had no choice in the matter. That's what these machines come with nowadays. You know, from the days of running, what was it, 486s? What was the one before 48? It's not 486. 386s. 386 before 48. Yeah, so that's where I'm going with this. Okay. So my AutoCAD tool of choice is AutoCAD Map 3D. For those, you know, maybe not recognize any of the menus, I'm sure you know about the workspaces. Map 3D is built upon AutoCAD, so I have all of my AutoCAD functionality. In addition, I have this big box on the left side of the screen that allows me to do things with the information on the screen. And we'll come to that again momentarily. Indeed, not only do things, but have some fun with this. Now, I prefer using the more modern icons, so I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go back to that. On the screen, we have an ESRI shapefile. So it's a piece of GIS data. Many thanks to the city of Springfield in Oregon, because this is where it comes from. Using this particular tool, that FDO thing, I'm able to connect, excuse me, for example, to in a raster image, navigates to where the raster image is, hit a button, add the information to the screen, wait for a few seconds, in goes my GeoTIFF. Let's just change on the right side of the screen for a moment the draw order. So what you see is me connecting real time to a TIFF image, connecting. There's no insert. So if you're in this situation where you want to connect to, let's for example do this one more time with something slightly different. Going through the process, I can insert an image using the insert image command, or with Civil 3D or AutoCAD Map, take this opportunity to navigate to a directory on my machine, find, and I thought I set this up earlier, obviously I did not, find an image for San Antonio. This is an ER Mapper ECW file. Stick the information, geographically located by the way, on the screen. Now that was a 2 gigabyte image. This is a normal laptop, it's nothing special. That was a 2 gigabyte image, came to the screen, I don't know, in less than 2 seconds. I can insert and it will come to the screen in less than 2 seconds. But there lies the challenge that when I start using the insert over the connect, when I start doing things like this, panning and zooming around the image, this is where it starts using memory. This is a place called San Antonio, excuse me, in Texas. Rather interesting place actually. If I can find, apparently they're going to be knocking down this old church in San Antonio for a drive-through McDonald's, which I think is very, very bad. It's somebody over here, this side of the room, the clever people. Sorry, that was rude. Is that the Alamo? Yes, it is the Alamo. All right, but all right. What you've not seen in this, and digressing slightly, if I go to the right side of the screen, a quick right mouse click allows me to resample the raster information, zoom out, and I'm only dealing with that portion of the image. But I'm still connected to the 2 gigabyte image. And by the way, if I need to get this out, here's the other challenge. How do I get that 2 gigabyte image and just that portion of it to somebody who doesn't have AutoCAD Map or Civil 3D? Well, there's a little button that allows me to actually basically save the content as an AutoCAD drawing, stripping the links out and just saving the extent of that information. Let's stick it on my desktop just for a second. We'll call it Pete. It will save the drawing and a XREF connection to the image. So now if I look at my desktop, here's the Pete drawing on my desktop, but there's the associated image that goes with it. Now 2 gigabytes, just that small portion, is now down to 2 megabytes. So just as an FYI, I'll show you some cheats in a minute, where you can actually, I shouldn't say cheat or steal. What I should say is you've got to be careful of the property rights of the imagery you're looking at. We're going to get into raster design momentarily, but I just want to show you that taking this raster imagery that could be quite big, you can give that information to other people. Well, let's get rid of that simple image. Excuse me, I apologize profusely. I have a horrible flu coming on. If you've ever been to Autodesk Labs, again, imagery, getting the most out of your imagery, there is a free tool at Autodesk Labs called Project Base Jump, BASEJUMP, and the ability to connect to the Microsoft Bing image service. So here, and the Project Base Jump, by the way, takes about 15 seconds to download, about 15 seconds to install. It only works on AutoCAD Map and Civil 3D, but it gives me the option within this Data Connect area to connect to the Microsoft Bing service, and then let's just pull in some aerial information. Click, wait for a few seconds. It's doing this live. And there's the information from the Microsoft Bing server. If I zoom in very quickly, let's do that. You can see it pixelating because it's trying to find the best possible image from that server. It's telling me that I can't zoom any further in. So Project Base Jump, freely downloadable, free to use. Just be careful if you use that little tip that I showed you in stealing the image question. Right, so the question being the ArcGIS plugin for AutoCAD. I've never used it because I have AutoCAD Map. Well, I'm going to use, I know it's about raster design, but I want to get the GIS elephant in the room out of the way for a moment because I'm a GIS person. But AutoCAD Map will read and write Esri data natively. I can use all of my AutoCAD functionality to edit that Esri data natively. I don't need to buy anything. I don't need to have a plugin. It is a better AutoCAD, but I can connect to shapefiles. The line work, just very quickly, and to answer your question, I never bother using it. I've never used it. I can't give you a comparison. But the fact that I have, if I turn the image off for a second, I have here on the screen an ESRI shapefile that I got from the municipality. And I'm an extremely experienced AutoCAD user. I'm lying from my teeth because 16 years, I know about 9 AutoCAD commands, and they include things like undo, redo, layer. But here I'm going to click on the shapefile, the polygon that belongs to another vendor's file, and simply edit. So hang on, where's my mouse? Oh, where's my mouse? Sit down, Pete. There you go. Click. Because guess what? I am an experienced AutoCAD user, and I know that if I move that grip from there to there, I'm editing data in another format. There's no import, no export. So your question, sir, do I need a plugin for the ArcGIS for a vanilla AutoCAD? Possibly. I had no idea how much it costs, but guaranteed. You know, looking at the fact that AutoCAD Map, as an example, will allow multiple users to edit a drawing at the same time, an AutoCAD drawing, that's value enough for me just to move in that direction for that. It wasn't an AutoCAD Map presentation, but I can't give you a comparison because I've never used the question. Right, so question, when I inserted the image, how was it geolocated? Again, this is not an AutoCAD Map presentation, but it is part of the fact that a lot of these images are geo-referenced. They have geography. AutoCAD Map looks at the image, puts it in the right location.
But I'm used to inserting the images using the correlation file or roll file.
Right.
If you're going to do the map command, how did you tell just the PNG file?
Right. So, expanding on the question, this is related as well to raster design. But for example, connecting to the image, connecting to the drawing, this information happens to have a coordinate system assigned to it. Esri data, Esri is a competitor to Autodesk. They have fantastic software, they have great data, and it comes with a coordinate system. So I'm working in an Oregon State plane coordinate system. Now you may be wondering what the hell is that? Please don't worry about it. I'll go past this later. Or go through it again later, but if I connect to the image file, so if I go back to that TIFF image, AutoCAD Map reads, well, it says unknown, but it does have geography. It reads the geography, understands the geography, and when I click on the button to add to the map, it puts that information, because it's read the image, puts it in the right location. Not only puts it in the right location, but does on-the-fly reprojection, because guess what? The image file is maybe in a latitude, longitude 1984. Am I drawing something else? So I'm going to take a lot of that offline later, but Map is an incredibly clever tool. Civil 3D is built on top of Map to be able to take this information and do stuff with it, on-the-fly reprojection. So as a user, and let me ask you a quick question. And again, as a user, how many times have you ever seen a drawing, excuse me, where you've got a tiny pinprick on the bottom left corner of the drawing, and a tiny pinprick on the top right corner of the drawing, and you know that those two pieces of information should be matched together. Coordinate systems, AutoCAD Map helps with that. So just as an FYI, we'll take that offline because I did want to go through the raster design stuff for you. So this is an example of image insert over connecting. I'm not going to edit the GIS data, but I'm going to get rid of the drawing. There's my San Antonio stuff. I'm going to get rid of that too because I've all surplus to requirements. Now, I've got a blank drawing here, and I'm going to explain what's going to happen, but I've cheated on this blank drawing. And I'll show you how I've cheated. I've got two layers in my blank drawing, one called minor and one called major. You with me on this? Just full disclosure, this is not, oh, I've got a rabbit secreted under my left sleeve. But I want to show you that for a moment. I have also got a connection to some GIS data, which happens to be the road network for the city of Redding in Northern California. Just turning it on. Zoom in a bit closer so you can see it's just roads. Colored red simply to make it easy for me to see what's going on. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through the process of taking an image which I downloaded from a website, free, use that F word, but that image itself is a USGS quad map. And I want to do stuff to that USGS quad map. We'll do some GIS and we'll do some architectural scanned information. But I want to give you a flavor of what raster design and the capabilities and how you can benefit from your imagery. So let's quickly turn the roads off. I have started raster design, so already I've got the raster tool tabs available to me on the screen. How many people use raster design at the moment? A lot of you, okay. So it's going to be a refresher. It's maybe going to show you some things that you didn't know. But I want to go through this and make it fun too. So we're going to go through the process. You can see the way the menu is structured. Very simply, you're inserting, managing, correlating, editing. Raster entity manipulation, or REM, we're going to go through that, and doing stuff, vectorization. REM is predominantly dealing with raster, keeping it raster. I want to deal with raster, don't want to convert it. And of course, if I move to the right, I can convert. But before we can do any of that, I need to insert an image. Now, in true demonstration fashion, I did find my image. This image does have geography. It does have a correlation file. It does have a world file. Sometimes it may be an individual file associated with it. Sometimes the information is actually physically associated or in the image itself. Or at other times, there's just no information. So what raster design enables you to do is pick one of the choices. You know, do you know if the image file has information? Is there a separate file that comes with it? Or do you want to physically give the location on the screen? Here, I'm cheating because this did come from the United States Geological Survey. So I'm just going to click buttons. But even through the process of clicking buttons, I can determine different points of correlation. Well, the image is going to go there. And that's maybe because you want to do that. But in this particular case, I'm going to go with what the United States Geological Survey has given me. There's the image on the screen. This image itself, from memory, it looks like it's around 1927, 57 changes. 1927 data, maybe it was made in 57. You can see, I'm sure you've printed out these maps and gone hiking or visiting around various towns and cities and so forth. Does everyone understand what's on the screen there? It's just a quad image. But guess what? I want this quad image to be sensible. Does this quad image actually relate to real world stuff? Well, I can go out and get survey points. I can bring the survey points back. I can maybe eyeball stuff. I can rubber sheet stuff, start looking at editing or correlation of the information. And that's what I'm going to do. But guess what? I'm going to do that based upon, bless you, the more modern, potentially modern. You know, I'm a GIS professional. You know what GIS stands for? Get it surveyed. So, tongue-in-cheek, but for demonstration purposes, I wanted to show you the GIS content on top of the image just to determine whether the image is correct or not. Because you know what happens? You scan documents, documents stretch, or Mylars have been hanging up for many years, they stretch, people have dropped coffee in them, the image is skew as it's been scanned through, all sorts of horror stories happen when you're dealing with images. So in this particular case, what I'm looking for is, well, obviously the road networks don't quite match the modern day imagery. So what can I do here? Well, I'm purposely zooming in and out because I'm trying to remember, there's a nice start spot. I'm going to use some of the rubber sheeting functionality. I can use match. Match uses 2 points. But I'm going to use rubber sheet. Well, hang on, Pete. AutoCAD, I can insert an image and I can rubber sheet in AutoCAD. Absolutely you can, but you can only rubber sheet from memory up to 3 points. Now, the city of San Francisco is not flat. And I've got an ortho image. How do I rubber sheet that image to local infrastructure? I know the image to be flat, but actually, in reality, the city is made up of hills. And this is what I'm going to do here, rubber sheet. The simple process is identify points on the screen as the control points for my rubber sheeting. So literally adding points. So I'm zooming in, I'm snapping, snap to the image, snap to the GIS, zoom out. Find, and I've done this a couple of times, forgive me, but I've just picked 4, but snap to the image, snap to the GIS. Let's go somewhere else. Somewhere, I don't know, maybe up here somewhere. There we go. Snap to the image. Can you see my cursor on the screen? Snap to the image, snapped to the GIS, and we'll do one more just to prove the point that I can do certainly more than 3, but snap to the image, snap to the GIS. Enter key, up pops a dialog box. These points can be saved in a separate file, because if I want to revisit the points sometime in the future or correlate those points with a data logger from a survey equipment I can revisit each of those points. So by clicking a line, gives me a point location I can go to, you know, with the button zoom to. But at the moment I do OK, a couple of things will happen. This is live. At the bottom of the screen, you can see it processing the image. Do you see that? And then what will happen, based upon the algorithm which I picked, which is basically give me the shape of the image, but just rubber sheet if you can, it will finish, and has it finished? Yes. And you can already see some correlation happening. So we're making that image, the USGS quad map, a little bit more intelligent, giving more meaning. Now, I only did 4 points in the space of 3 minutes. Give myself a couple of cups of coffee, a couple of hours. This image will be down to surveying base quality. And it was a free image off the USGS website. Any questions on that? Question?
Now you've done it, so oh my gosh, I need to fix this area over here to the lab. Do you add it to the point list you have, or does it rubber sheet rubber?
So the question being, if I understand the question correctly, if I've made further mistakes or want to add more points, then it will rubber sheet on top of this rubber sheet. So it will rubber sheet what you're doing here. Interesting point. Well, no. So if I understand, through natural fruition, I've got the 4 points. This already rubber sheeted those, so it's not going to do any more. But it will take those into consideration with the other points you've added to it. Yeah. Let's have a look. I don't know. Let's have a look. I've never tried that. Thank you. Something new for me. So we'll rubber sheet. Will it remember the last 4 points? No, it doesn't. So because you've used those 4 points to rubber sheet, now if you use more points, you're rubber sheeting what you got there. But I could have saved that group of points. And then, you know, it would be pointless to bring them back in because it's already been positioned. But I understand where you're going. We'll try that offline. That's a good experiment. I don't know, but good question. Okay, now I've got this information. The GIS data is now surplus to requirements. So a quick click of a button turns that GIS stuff off. It's not gone, I've just turned it off. Now we're going to do a couple of things. I'm going to capture some squiggly lines. Are we all okay with squiggly lines? Do we know what squiggly lines are? My major is architecture, by the way. Squiggly line is a squiggly line. Contours. And at some time in the near future, I'm going to take some of this text. Wouldn't it be great to capture that text too? So let's do that. Now, the reason why I'm using what looks to be GIS information as opposed to, for example, let me just do this quickly, as opposed to, for example, inserting, where are you? There you go. Inserting, let's do this. Inserting an architectural drawing is because I personally think full color, squiggly lines is a lot more interesting than the architectural drawing. And we will get back to the architectural drawing momentarily. So this is, it's not by means an excuse. I just wanted to give you a flavor of exactly what raster design can do for you and the benefits of it, but on something a little bit more interesting. So we have information on the screen here. We need to do stuff to this information. Raster is a great tool to help correlate, edit, maintain, create, do stuff to your raster image, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now through a simple process. That process being, well, I don't want to deal with the whole image, I just want to deal with part of the image. So let's just crop, in this particular case, a rectilinear area. By the way, I'm sure you know, but the secondary point gives me the angle for that particular rectilinear cropping area. So let's just keep it horizontal, drop it down, that's the area I want. So I've just cropped this. Now if I were to save or detach or remove the image, Raster Design will ask me, do you want to save that image? So just be careful that you don't overwrite the original. Save it as something different, cropped. If you're going to clean the image up or correlate the image, do the rubber sheeting, save the image as something different. Because you may want to go back for historic or legal reasons to the original image. Well, I've got the image here, that's fantastic, but we've got a lot of colors, a lot of stuff on there that I really don't need. It's surplus to requirements. So again, using the editing tools and the crop, as you can see, I was very simply cropping the image, but one step across, I want to start playing with the image, start removing some of the colors for the image, because I'm going to capture just the salient points for me. I'm not worried about greens or reds or other stuff, I just want the contour lines. So let's do that by picking the palette manager. Now the palette manager itself identifies each of the colors, the frequencies of the colors that you can see on the image. I do know that the two colors I'm interested in are frequencies, or index number 5 in this particular case, and 13. However, I could come to a little button at the top of the screen, which I always miss, which gives me like an eyedrop, where I can select the image on the screen. As you can see, it's selected that particular color. In fact, I think I picked the green. I wasn't zoomed in further. So, but the two colors I want are these two colors. Most Autodesk solutions, if you didn't know this already, right mouse click, RMC, is a wealth of different things that a right mouse click in any of our solutions will offer you. So a right mouse click here allows me to actually invert my selection, which means, hey, turn the two things I want on, off, unselected, but select everything else because I want to change the color for everything else to white. So now I'm beginning to filter the information out. Are you with me? Am I losing anyone? I see nods. Thank you. Taking this a step further, well, I still want to process the image. Why is processing of an image important? Well, obviously the cleanup and the rubber sheeting, we're going to go into more cleanup on the architectural drawing momentarily, is important for me. I want to make it clean. But in this particular case, I've got a bitonal, tonal or color image, and I want that image to be monochrome, so I can do some tracing. I want to capture the information. So this is why I'm going through this particular process, and the value of raster design that enables me to actually physically do that. Well, you know, processing the image, it takes a little while to get used to, but this box here allows me to do things. Well, let's make it grayscale. Let's have a look at the grayscale, fill in some of the gaps. I'm just with the slider control on the histogram, basically asking raster design to fill in the gaps. There's an extreme gap, going the other way, of course, just making it white, which is rather contrary to what I'm trying to do. But round there is the optimum area. Finish with that. We're happy. Apply and close. Now, well, this is great. Pete, you said black and white, fantastic, but you're using AutoCAD Map with raster design. You've got a grey background, and you've got grey lines with a black background. Well, of course, using some simple tools, again, to invert the image, spin it around the other way. So now, let's quickly recap what I did. I found a piece of information, a resource, which was important to me. I want to capture information from that resource, but I had to go through a process of cleaning that information up. Take the information, do stuff with that information. You saw me rubber sheeting. You saw me with that palette manager, just picking just the bits I want. You saw me then taking just the information, getting it, filling in some of the gaps, just getting to that point that I really need. And this is where it starts for me, gets rather fun. Now, I am looking at the image. I do have some contours. These are 20-foot contours for the minor, and the major at every 100 feet. So I'm cheating. It does say 1200 there, but that's okay. Cheating in this particular case is okay. So I'm going to assume, badly assume, but we'll take it, that this contour to the bottom right corner of the screen, let's just say that's 1,000, 1,100, 1,200. So I can now start doing things. We've gone through the process of inserting, managing, possibly correlating, bit of editing. Now we're going to do some vectorization. Before I do that, I want to train raster design. Well, what does training mean? Well, raster design needs to understand if you want to use raster snaps. It needs to understand if you get to a problem or a point, what do you do next? It's semi-intelligent, but it does require you as professionals to understand what you want to do with that information. And that's exactly what I'm doing now, is I am telling raster design that every single one of my minor contours is going to be at is going to be at 20 feet. And I'm going to put those minor contours on a layer. Do you remember at the beginning, full disclosure, I said I've got a drawing, but I had two layers. One layer called minor, my major contours. Excuse me. They're going to be on a layer called major. So this is an example of the training process for raster design. My watch has stopped. Will somebody be kind enough to tell me what time it is? 20 to 6. So I haven't got much time in it. 20 minutes. Perfect. Okay. So this is where we start having fun. Okay. So we trained. It is 20 to 6. All right. And the session, I should notice, was 4:30 to 6:30. 5 to 6:30. I've got long time. Mike, I'm sorry. I asked you. All right, so this is where it gets fun. Now I've gone through from the left of the screen to the right, and I'm moving further over to the right of the screen where I'm not jumping over REM. We'll come to that, but with the architectural drawing, we'll revisit other things to do in a minute, but I'm going straight to the fun stuff, where I can follow lines. Well, what sort of lines do you want to follow? Just ordinary lines? Do you want to create contour lines? Do you want to create 3D polylines? Do you remember my example of the city of San Francisco? Sewer lines in San Francisco aren't flat. And I'm being tongue-in-cheek, but wouldn't it be great to take a flat scan drawing, identify a manhole cover, tell Raster Design the invert or the height of that manhole cover or the invert of the pipe, and then just draw a 3D polyline, which you can do. But in this case, I'm going to contour follow. Command prompt, very important. It's going to give me some options. So if you look at the command prompt at the bottom of the screen, you will see that when I click on a piece of imagery, you can just see the yellow line there. It's saying to me, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue? Do you want to go back? Do you want to jump? Well, we're happy with that. We'll continue. And now it's asking me the elevation. So this is where I use my superior typing skills, 1000. Well, let's go for that contour there. Now, it's automatically found one end, which is where my cursor is moving on the screen. We'll zoom in a bit closer. Do you see that? And if I go out a bit, it found the other end of that contour. I didn't need to worry about that. So that was 1000. We'll hit the enter, and this is going to be 1100. And we'll do a couple of these to make it look fun. We'll pick that one, and that found the squiggly line, like I mentioned earlier, squiggly lines for an architect, all the way to the top. We will find one with a mistake. Find one with aha. So, click that contour. Now, what it's done, it found the beginning of the contour line. I'm not sure you can barely see that, the yellow, if I scroll up to the top. And it found two challenges where it got to a line. This is where you train raster design. You can set an aperture or a gap, pixel gap. When it gets to a certain point, do something. I don't care, just do it. But in this case, I've trained it to stop me. So, let's go back to the other end. Zoom in a bit closer. Well, the aperture was a little bit finer, so it found the line. But I'm going to type in from the command prompt B to back up, and then simply jump across, and again looking at the command prompt O to continue until it found its natural course to the end or to the next mistake. Very useful if you've got a bunch of utility pipes coming into one manhole and you want to, it looks like a spider leg, and you want to have it go off in a certain direction. Again, the command prompt, well, I want to switch to the other end. So now it's just switched to the other end. Same thing. B for backing up. And, well, okay, that was exciting. And we shall just finish with that. This is 1200 again to there. And we'll do one or two small ones just to fill in the gaps. So we'll do that one. That looks okay. So this is going to be 1020. Let's do this one. 1040. That one. 1060. 10. That would be interesting. 60. And last but not least, this one. So in the space of 5 minutes, I have, and with my very last enter key, taken those contours, removed the raster, or as much of the raster underneath, again part of the training process, removed the raster underneath, and created myself a rather nice, let's spin this round in 3 dimensions. Wait for a second. There we go. 3-dimensional, well, actually the contours are the correct elevation, because as I was going along capturing, I was feeding the information in. There's my information. Questions? I'm sorry, forgive me. If I got the question correctly and understand, can I still have that raster underneath if I wish? Oh, right, I beg your pardon. So the question being was it a separate command to remove the raster underneath when I finished that command? Was that correct? The answer is training. It's part of the raster design configuration. You tell raster design, hey, when you've done the line following, delete the stuff underneath. And not only delete the stuff underneath, pick the aperture size, so it followed the line, but if I increased the aperture size, it would have found everything within that extent, if you wish, and removed it. So that's part of raster design. Or I could have just said leave it. But good question. So the answer is, it isn't a separate command. It's part of the training in that configuration box over on the right side of the screen here. When I drop this down, oh, I'm in a 3D orbit. That's why that's going to make this interesting for me. So where you would see momentarily, hopefully, a little drop-down box, and in there you would identify that you wanted to remove the raster underneath. Now, children, don't do this at home, but I've seemed to have locked up rather alarmingly. So if this ever does happen, and you need to close AutoCAD very quickly, go into your task manager, not under applications, but under processes, find AutoCAD and just end the process. Hope you didn't mind me doing that. I apologize. That's just what happens, but that's okay. It takes me into a different area, and I'm going to show you some other uses of raster design with architectural-based information. Make a note of that, because I may have found something undesirable, but never mind. Okay. So where I was going with this, thank you, just get roughly back to where I was. Where I was going with this, that physical command was in this area here. So in the removal methods, there's going to be a tab, and forgive me, I can't remember where it is, but removing the information underneath, it will be in there. But here you can see the aperture size, the pixels. Physically, you know, how big do you want that pixel? Are you quite happy with it being quite big or quite small? What do you want to do with this? Right. So that was the geospatial information. Finishing, not necessarily just with the geospatial information, but finishing with part of that same quad map to show you the value of pulling other real relevant information from that free resource. So what I did is I went through the same process as we did earlier with the inserting, the correlation, the editing. I went through the same process of taking the bottom right or bottom left corner of the screen. Because guess what? I've got some fantastic text in here that I want to recognize. Optical Character Recognition. You can train raster design to recognize your handwriting or handwritten information. You can have raster design recognize tables. How often do you have an architectural drawing that has a door schedule on it, that has useful information? Wouldn't it be great to use a tool to actually capture that information and give me data ready to place into an Excel spreadsheet? Which you can do. But in this particular case, I'm going to keep it very straightforward, very simple, but again, the vectorization tools on the right side of the screen here. Let's pick the optical character recognition. The requests are very, very simple from raster design. Well, what do you want to convert? What do you want to recognize? So I'm going to put a box, very similar to what we did with the cropping earlier, around the text that I want recognized. Now, momentarily, you will see appear on the screen, momentarily, there we go, a recognized text dialog box. So what you're seeing at the top of the screen is the raster imagery that I want to recognize. And at the bottom of the screen, I'm looking at the text that is found and recognized. And it may have found some challenges, some errors. Okay, it's not put any gaps in for me. I don't know why. Let's put some gaps in. There you go. So it's actually highlighted in green that we've got some challenges here. Well, that should be topography, so that should be a G. So this is particularly useful if it's looking for things like spelling mistakes. So let's find a spelling mistake. All right, of course it's not going to be in there, but we'll keep it at that. I was looking for meters. Spelt wrong, of course, I can't see it, but that doesn't matter. We'll just finish with that. Now, do I want this information as AutoCAD text or MText? We'll just keep it as MText. Hit the OK button. And graphics display. That's why the flash on the screen, but there is my text. I should have gone through this and just put in some spaces, removed the challenges, but taking raster information from a source that I downloaded from the United States Geological Survey, cleaned the drawing up, and I've now got MText in my drawing. Questions? Useful? Not useful? Do you use that? You do use it? Sir, question? So the question being, this gentleman's client insists on images being inserted into the drawing, that as a deliverable, I should imagine, correct? And your further question was, well, can you use those tools, the raster tools, against that inserted image? And the answer is I don't know, because I believe the answer to be yes. I've never tried it. We will try it a little later on. Is the answer yes? I can't. He says yes. I'm going to go with him. I've always used raster design to insert. I'm going to be honest with you. Not that I'm not honest, but I always use the functionality in AutoCAD Map that we discussed earlier, because for me, and deliverables for clients are different. But for me, the ability to connect to the image gives me a lot more benefit over than trying to stuff the image into the AutoCAD drawing. So that's where I was the honesty bit, that I've never tried it, but your colleague behind you said yes. So the answer to that question, you can use raster design tools on a drawing with the image inserted into the drawing. Was that the question? Thank you. So there, again, taking this to natural fruition, I've taken this information, brought it down to a level of, where I want this information for myself. At the end of the day, and I apologize for the contours disappearing, but there we go. But at the end of the day, if I decide to remove, detach, turn off, in this particular case, detach the image, well, it's telling me it's been changed. Do I want to save that? No, I don't. But there I'm left with the intelligence that I need. So now you're going to see a lot of flavor around raster design, but you're getting to see a lot of flavor around the value of and the benefits of the insert over the connect. And again, where do you want to go with this information? We have an expression in, well, there's an expression. You can kill the same cat many different ways. Anyone a cat lover in the room? I apologize profusely right away. But right, so we're there. That's perfect. We're at that point. I'm going to start looking at some non-related information now, architectural-based information. Shoo. What's going on here? I've got all sorts of things happening on my... There, go away, toolbar. Okay, so blank drawing, I assume. And we will look at an architectural drawing. This architectural drawing, 00. Doesn't have any geography related to it, but I can pick an insertion position if I wanted to. Here, in this particular case, well, in this particular case, there you go, that particular case, pick an insertion point, pick the layer that I want my image on. But it's just an architectural drawing, usual zoom extents, there it is there. You saw the optical character recognition. Let's, just for fun, see what it makes of bedroom. Click. Let's do the hashtag too. Click, click, click. Bedroom became, all right, well, that's an interesting, color schemes change. I don't know why it's doing that. Doesn't matter. My graphics card, I'm sure. Okay, so you still have the optical character recognition. This is more handwritten. It is important, maybe train raster design, that this handwriting is going to be a bit important to me. I notice that the image is skewed We can deskew the image. We can rubber sheet the image. You saw that earlier. I noticed there's some dots on the image, some bits of dust that have been picked up by the scanner. Question? Well, at what point would I be worried about the scale? At every single, right at the very beginning. Well, they're not, right, so the question is, at what point would I be worried about the scale of the image? And my answer was right at the very beginning. However, in your workflow, at what point would it be? I mean, it sounds flippant, but at what point would you want to scale it? Would you want to then scale it in relation to something else? Would you want somebody to just do something with the image, give me the drawing, and let me scale it and rotate it and position it afterwards? Okay. 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 Yeah. Did we all get that? So putting in lines and scaling the image up based upon the correct AutoCAD line. Was that correct? Yeah. I agree with you. I did make the admission earlier, and I'd admit to it again. I know about 9 AutoCAD commands. I think it went up 1 scale in 16 years of working for Autodesk, and I'm quite proud of that. But you're right. It's that workflow. At what point would it be? From a technical point of view here, no. I'm just dealing with the image and maybe get somebody else to worry about that, or think about what I'm doing beforehand. Good question. It sounded like a flippant answer, and I promise you it wasn't, but it's a workflow answer. Now, in this particular case, we have some pixels, we have some dust, and of course, scanning documentation or trying to get a straight scan when you've got somebody who's not particularly interested in scanning documentation for a living, they're not worried about keeping the scanner clean or putting the image in correctly. So at this particular point, I can start using some of the tools to remove the dirt, remove the information on the screen. As you can see on the cleanup, if I look at this, we played with invert earlier when I turned everything from mainly black and white through to black lines and a white background. But in this area, we've got things like despeckle. Well, that sounds interesting. Despeckle, what does that mean? Well, take that part of the image there as the average speckle size. That image there, I don't know why it went out, the average speckle size, and remove it. Snaps are all over the place today. I did check this. Let's try this one more time. Let's despeckle. So we're going to, right, that whole area there, that's what I should have done. And that's the typical size of my, right, that area there, that's the typical size of my speckle. I should be watching what's going on. So basically, identify an area, identify a speck size, get it to clean up the image. Now, I only did part of the image there, and I picked a fairly big speckle size. That was okay, but you see how quick this did this? Or I could have simply used one of my other tools, the touch-up tool. The brush within the touch-up tool is a little bit small, so let's just resize the brush. We'll make it sort of fairly substantial. These are akin to a bit like paint tools. So let's zoom in a bit closer so I can start, let's go there. Well, I have no idea it's not going to be called the living room anymore, so we'll zoom over there, and that's not going to be the bedroom. Oops, okay, there's going to be a door in there later on. And we shall just clean up the image. So, not only can we use that tool to clean up information, because there's nothing more annoying than having little specks and dots and stuff that when printing out just looks really weird. But resizing the brush, let's go back to that, resizing this brush to maybe something a bit bigger, changing the background color or toggling the background color, I can actually use this to fill in the gaps too. So, you know, filling in the gap would be as silly as doing something like that. I wouldn't want to do that, but I'm actually drawing raster against the raster image. So those touch-up tools can be used. You saw the clean-up tools, the despeckle, to actually remove the speckles and make it just a lot easier to go over the whole image, remove speckles. But here, I'm using the touch-up tools just to touch up certain areas, fill in some of the gaps. Because not everyone wants to convert raster to vector. People just want to deal with a vector. Well, why would that be important? Well, this may be a historic document. I'm not going to save any of those changes. I hope you don't mind there. But this may be an important document where I may want to just purely be in a raster-based environment. Well, what are you talking about? Well, I've got an image. The door hand is handed, it's opening in, handed to the right, but I want to mirror this to have the door swinging out. But I want to keep it in a raster format. I don't want to convert it to AutoCAD. So before I do that, I'm just going to go through that touch-up process very quickly, just to, because it is a join of the hip in that area. So let's change the background for a second. We'll just, if you wish, make a break there. And if you wish, maybe should make it a little bit smaller, the brush. It doesn't matter. Let's just, actually, let's make the brush bigger. Get rid of that stuff. Thank you. Hit the Enter key. So now we've got this information because I want to mirror this image. So you have a concept within Raster Design, and one of the concepts is you can work completely using raster entities. Raster Entity Manipulation, REM. And it allows you to take existing raster entities, temporarily convert them to a pseudo-vector-based environment, do stuff with that information, and then send it back to its native raster environment. You with me? So what I'm going to do is basically do a quick conversion, but keep it as raster and then have it merge back into the image. So this is where my REM tools come into play. And some of these REM tools, there are predefined primitives. As you can see here, we can put a box around a whole area, or various sizes of boxes. So we'll take the raster underneath and convert it to a pseudo-vector. We can come over to the primitive area, and I can say, look, I've got an arc, and that's the arc there. And it's got a, yeah, look, it's jumped across. Because you remember the training thing I told you about? The aperture? Well, it jumped across. That's okay, but we've got an arc there, and we've got a line here. Now, that's a pseudo-vector environment. So I'm going to show you something which I'm astounded at, because I taught myself this in 5 minutes, and it's something called the mirror command. Mirror? And now you're watching a complete AutoCAD novice identify that that object there, click, and that object there, I'm going to have the mirror line from, I don't know, let's go from, and I've got my raster snaps off. I can turn top right corner of the screen, the raster snaps on, but I'm just going to eyeball it if you wish. Do I want to raise the raster entity underneath? I'm going to say yes. Mirror that, and then push that information back to the raster image. That object there and that object there. Now, to me, I know it looks very silly or simple, not silly. To me, that was wow. I can actually take, some rastered lines, not worry about converting them to AutoCAD lines, but just keep it in raster because that's all we need in order to convey whatever message to whatever deliverable I'm giving to whatever client, internally or externally. So this is called raster entity manipulation. But the beauty is that raster line, that pseudo line, can be worked on like an AutoCAD line. So you can start using your AutoCAD functionality. You maybe want to trace. Well, I can't trace on the raster line, but if I'm doing an offset for a curb, but if I temporarily convert it to the raster entity manipulation pseudo vector line and then do my AutoCAD, whatever the AutoCAD trace is, with an offset, so it's actually tracing the line, but adding additional raster. And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Any questions on this? Did you know you could do that? Are you using this? Am I showing value? Are you learning anything from this? If you're not, please tell me, because there's nothing worse than listening to a talking head or a commercial. Question? We did this earlier with a line following, and the answer is yes. And we're going to do it again momentarily. Putting a big box around things, saying make the drawing vector, no. But what we can do is, and I think this is where your question was going to, and please tell me if it isn't by shouting. I'm sorry about the size of the room. If we come up to, let's say for me, the important things would maybe be to capture walls. Now, the gentleman's comment earlier about, well, the scaling and so forth, well, yeah, that is very important. Like I said, I'm not an AutoCAD person, but what I would want to do is maybe come over to the recognition. We did the line following earlier. Do you remember the contours? And I talked about the 3D polyline. But if I come immediately to the right, not too far right, because that was the optical character recognition, you can see some basic primitives. Click on something. Trace the line, remove the raster underneath. So for example, for me, what would be rather useful is a rectangle. And let's zoom in a bit closer. Let's put my raster snaps on. Right side of the screen here, you can see my raster snaps. So now I've got the aperture. See the aperture? And you can just barely make out the circle with a cross. It's showing me the raster center. I think this is where I go. Click. Down to there and across. I think that's it. So there's one. Let's go there. I'm eyeballing this and I apologize. Let's go in to there, to there. Did I get it? Oh, I missed it. All right. Let's stop that one. We'll do it again. Stop it. We'll do it again. Let's try down here. I'm trying to be clever. Let's do a primitive, the rectangle. So I've got a rectangle from there. Let's go way over, down, and across. So getting to that situation of, if we turn the image off, the image, hide the image, there we go. So now we're capturing vector-based information directly from the raster. And of course, what I did do was said, hey, look, you know, when you put the boxes around, using the raster snaps, remove the raster underneath, just for sanity's sake. But again, for me, sanity's sake, remove the raster, but I could have kept it there. But in essence, those primitives. At that point, it does need you as professionals to sit there and think, well, is that the right thickness? Is it the right scale? Because I am snapping to something that was from 1927, potentially is stretched, somebody has sneezed on it, it's got coffee stains, everything that happens to a beautiful scanned drawing. Has anyone ever put, and I've done this, I grew up on a drawing board, tracing paper. Has anyone ever put a hot cup of coffee on a drawing made out of tracing paper? You know what it does? It just goes, scrunches up. So again, using these tools, it gets you so far, but it does need for you to sit there and think, well, okay, I need to take this information afterwards. What am I going to do with this information? Question? Well, hang on a minute, before your question. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Let's take it offline because I'll experiment. Because I've never put a big box around things. I've been told you can't. But anyone can answer this, or anyone tried it? I don't think so either. Well, right, so this gentleman is the same page as you. Not sure if you heard him, but he wants to do the same thing with quad maps, with the contours, just put a box around the whole thing. You know, raster design is semi-automatic. It does, and I hate to say this, but it's true, it does require your knowledge base to understand what you want to do with this stuff. Putting a box around that architectural image, you know, then I'm going in, picking out doors, picking out windows, picking out walls, removing stuff, and it's that workflow challenge. Which way around do you work? I know exactly what you want to do, though. Put a box around this. That's the whole kitchen. That's going to be a predefined kitchen with these pieces of appliances and so forth. Give me a drawing. I think the answer is no at the moment, but if somebody can prove me wrong, that's great. Right, it's quite if I may tell everyone, your third-party software that you have seen that does do that. And the more you spend, the better it is. I'm only going on what this gentleman has said, but that's true. Okay, so as far as the architectural drawing is concerned, it's using those primitives to actually get me started. And again, I ask, whenever customers look at this, you know, they want that magic wand, want that magic bullet. Absolutely, you should deserve that. But up until the point, I've had this scanned document, and it's not really been, or potentially it's not been that useful. Now it's becoming a lot more useful, a lot more richer, a lot more entertaining for me, because I can start fiddling about with stuff. Now we have 15 minutes. We are actually basically at the end of what I wanted to cover with you on raster design. I wanted to leave 15 minutes for a possible discussion, questions. I'm happy to give you 15 minutes back because I think Lynn Allen's got beer or something going on down in the exhibit area. But was this of value to you? Did it give you a flavor for different ideas? Yeah? I'm not after special dispensation or, you know, be kind to me. I hate presenting. In my job, this is what I do. But unless it brings value, or unless it brings benefit, it seems pointless. And with raster design, it's one of those unsung heroes. Here's a huge recommendation. Buy one copy. If I may, salesperson now. One copy, network license. You may have 500 people in your organization. Are they all going to be using raster design at the same time? No. Do they need raster design to insert images? No. So at a point where you do need to let people use this specific tool to capture information, make sure it works with what you want to do, great, let them use it sometime in the future. On a network license, you know somebody's got it checked out. When they're finished with it, check back in. Guess what? I've got the information ready to continue with my job. And that's where raster design becomes the unsung hero. It's not one of these, you know, you need, hey, I've got 50 users. Do I need 50 raster designs? I'd love for you as an Autodesk salesperson, because guess what? Your 401k may be linked to Autodesk stock. I'd love for you to buy 50 copies of raster design. You don't need to. Do you know where I'm going from now? I'm one of the rare breeds in Autodesk. I sell, but I sell value and benefits. It's pointless throwing stuff at you. So, any questions? Questions, sir? At the back first. Image insert, it uses memory. So it doesn't matter whether you're using a raster design or whether you're using AutoCAD. Typically, the reason why you do use image insert typically in raster design is because you want to do something with that image. You want to give it real-world geography. You want to convert it to vector. And then once you've done that, save it. You're not using it anymore. So it will use up memory. Where you saw with AutoCAD Map and Civil 3D, slightly different. It doesn't use any memory. It's similar in performance. Insert a 2 gig image, connect to a 2 gig image. Similar, but at some point you will get degradation. There's warning messages because raster design does start using your, I think it's 20, I want to say it's 25 meg. Must be more than that, but whatever your, yeah, I'll find out the numbers. Numbers are in there and they help. So at that point, do you need raster design to insert an image? No. If you want to do stuff with that image, hey, raster design is a pretty good way of going forwards. Other questions?
So when you use the,
No, you're right, go on.
when you use the connection function, do commands like image just work anymore?
So the question being, if you use the connection command, image adjust, no.
How would you handle, like if you need to make adjustments to your image, but I like the functionality of reducing the file size on a huge 4 gigabyte aerial photo, how can I adjust the image?
Well, and there's the question being that balance between the connection to the 4 gigabyte image. And by the way, when I save the AutoCAD drawing on that connection, the 4 gigabyte image is not in the drawing. It's just a pointer to where the image resides. You have some functionality, but not to the same depth as you have with the image insert. So there is a bounce off with that. Didn't answer your question, but it's that whole workflow conversation.
But the answer is you can't really do it. You have to make a decision of what to do.
Right, and with the data, excuse me, on the right side of the screen, with that data connect button, it's just that, hey, I need to get to that information quickly to make an informed decision. It's entirely up to me whether I want that information to be on the screen when I do a plot. But hey, if I want to discard it, it's not a problem. There's some department, they got a GIS. They told me, hey, we've got this data. Oh, I want to use it. Just connect to it. Same with the image files. Oh, the image, yes, both sides, they will plot. A WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. Sir? So the question, if I got it correctly, the OCR, the Optical Character Recognition, are the dictionaries? Yes. And you've got your North American dictionaries, which are always wrong because you spell meter and color wrong, and theater. You can change the dictionaries.
So it's looking at the dictionary words when it's trying to...
Yeah, yes, it is. And I don't know. I've got an admission last week. Of course, it always happens. My disk physically crashed. I lost everything. So I'm beginning to discover things that I'm missing, and discover things that, oh, I need to change that. But OCR in here, where is it? Let's have a look. I think it's under the setup. Somewhere in the setup is the ability to. I get asked this question, and do you think I could find it? To change the dictionary. Somewhere in there is a dictionary, and of course, can I find it? Oh, well, maybe because it's there, under my very nose. So the recognition setup. So we've got spelling, language, English. We're maybe going to, because we're dealing with Icelandic, is very important. How we want to output this, the style, the height, text height, automatic. So basically, for the longest time, I had that turned off, the text height, and my text was coming in tiny. And I had no idea why. And then I found the box, because I'd forgotten about it, and I just made it automatic, so it does look at the size of the text you're recognizing and tries to keep it as near as that size of text. There is, okay, so yeah, there's your dictionaries. Spelling, language. English through to Catalan. All right. I'm not sure how important Catalan is. Recognition character sets. I didn't know there were so many recognition character sets, but there we go. So, if I am specifically dealing with a Zulu, I have no idea what Zulu characters look like, but obviously it will recognize those Zulu character sets. So the answer is yes. Any more questions? I'm between you and cocktails, by the way, so if you want to go, you're welcome to. We're just shooting the breeze about questions. Sir?
Is there a place where you can find a reference to the databases, SQL and those that you most likely will need? And, is there a website that has a reasonable amount of SQL databases, or whether it works?
In context to what? Imagery? To data?
Just to data, usually specific. We're from Oklahoma, and
All right, so if you need to go, please go. But no, I'm not trying to get rid of you. So the answer is yes. I have a PDF with, if you're looking specifically, are you a municipality? Are you a utility, government? So with AutoCAD Map and the ability to get free data, two areas I go to. I go to the U.S. Geological Survey, the United States Map Room. I've got a PDF that most municipalities will give you the information free. And if that information is in a vector format, or it doesn't matter whether it's a database format or a vector format. So if it's database format, AutoCAD Map, just very quickly, it shouldn't come down, AutoCAD Map will quite happily read and write to data from another vendor's format, even if it's in SQL, SQLite, Oracle, ArcSDE, which is a GIS from ESRI. Now, all you got for that, so for me, what I had to do was, find, well, I'm dealing with shapefiles because they're quite useful. Shapefiles, what state are you from? Oklahoma. So I, myself and my colleagues put together, I'm happy to give you this, it's not supported. There's a PDF in here that we call GIS Data and Mapping Resources. Click on that. And this is, like I said, a non-supported document. Here's the national sources. There are international sources too. But if I scroll down to the O's, have I gone past it? No. M-N-O. My country spawned the language, and I'm just having problems thinking about it nowadays. And Oklahoma. So we've got the Oklahoma Center for Geospatial Information. Click on that. And in there somewhere, it will give you a clearinghouse of GIS data. It tells you the various services you can use, and those can, in a lot of cases, be read quite happily by AutoCAD Map or Civil 3D. So if it was shapefiles, put the shapefiles somewhere, read them. If it's a personal geodatabase or a file-based geodatabase from ESRI, slightly different. I'm running 64-bit, 32-bit AutoCAD Map and Civil 3D gives you an extra line that says ArcGIS provider, and that will give you read-write access to personal file-based geodatabases, SQL stuff, everything. Did that help? Totally unrelated to raster design. Thank you. Any other questions? Sorry, questions. This is good. If you need to go, you are, please. But question.
Can you save my total image to a color? We have the whole color overlays. They've all, they're black and white. They're black. But we have them in the corner of the sheet red.
Oh, okay. Do you know, I don't know. That would be a great experiment. I'd love to get a hold of one of your images, if I may. I don't know. Never tried it. I've always started with something like a scanned monochrome, so I've cheated, I suppose, or a United States Geological Survey. But I don't see any reason why not, because you're assigning a color to a frequency. So each banding has a frequency. It's the hue, lightness, saturation, the red, green, and blue. It has a frequency for the color. I see no reason why not, but I'd like to experiment before I tell you yes, it can. Question?
earlier you did three samples and say
Yeah. So when I, and Dale, that's a good question. So just very quickly, right at the very beginning, if you remember, let's see if I can find it. What do I call it? I think I'll call it Pete. So what happens when I open up Pete from my desktop? He says, desktop. There's the DWG. And if I type in, and I knew this, I'm being facetious now, but if I type in xref, it understands the location of that PNG file. Do you see that? Whatever it does in xref. The only two files I have here are the DWG and the PNG. So when I e-transmit or send this to somebody else, I need to send both of them. Because I think in xref, if you can't find something, it tells you you've got an xref that can't be reconciled, and you have to, try and reconcile it. Yeah, it's a ping image. So PNG. So, and this is why you can open up this drawing in LT, because LT understands PNGs. But if I were to double click on the PNG now, this is in the Windows photo viewer. So it is that process. I alluded to it earlier. I want you please to remember that if you are connecting to an external image server and you capture stuff like this, you could be contravening the intellectual property rights of that provider. I just want to warn you. But within AutoCAD Map, Civil 3D, you can capture that information. With the ping file, with the DWG, yes. And because that ping file is xref'd into the DWG, it isn't necessarily associated with the PNG, but it is associated, by association, with the DWG. So I'm not sure there was a coordinate set with that image originally. No, there wasn't. But if there was, that DWG, you would see that would have a coordinate system. It was in the right location, but it didn't, there was no physical coordinate system associated with the image. So it's the DWG that keeps the location. If you look at the bottom left corner of the screen, you've got big, can you see that? Let's make that a bit smaller. These big numbers, do you see that? Exponential, because I'm dealing with large geographic areas. It's not 0, 0. Yes, in raster design you can. On inserting the image earlier, when I bang, 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 I said I could have picked. I could also insert an image, and saving that image out in raster design, if it was inserted, saving the image out to, so if I go back to my, so we'll save as, let's, where is it? This one. Exports world file for selected images. So you can actually export the geography and give it to that image. Question. Do you know, it's well past 6:30. You are welcome, but I'm not going anywhere except booth duty and drinking beer, so please.
Is there a way to bind the metadata from a world file into the image? So when you first did the connection, right, you didn't actually specify a correlation file because you said it was bound into the image. Is there a way that AutoCAD
Not AutoCAD. AutoCAD Map and Civil 3D has a fantastic metadata editor. So even when I'm connecting to that information in the DWG file, metadata, the who, what, where, why, how, and when, let's show you the metadata for this. Click. Oh, hang on, it's on the tools, they moved it. View the metadata. This has been in here for about 4 or 5 years. So now you can start seeing, well, you can add metadata to each of the, there was no feature sources, but I can add metadata to it. But what you see, let's bring one in, not with that one. Let's new drawing very quickly. So we'll bring some Esri data in again. By the way, the Esri data, shape files, city of Springfield in Oregon. I'm going to simply drag, no coordinate system, by the way, assigned to the drawing, blank drawing, it will say non-applicable. But the moment I connect to the first piece of information, where's the shapefile? Water lines, sewer lines, manhole covers, tack slots, drag, drop, on the fly reprojection occurs. The coordinate system gets assigned to the drawing. So now we're dealing with Oregon state plane coordinates. You see that? But the shapefile, so let's show you the metadata editor. We'll view the metadata, because I do know there, under FGDC, XML, or ISO, we have our metadata. So specifically, if the image had metadata to it, it would be associated to it, or I can add information to it. But let's go to the tack slots. The tack slots metadata. There's my metadata in FGDC Classic. I can edit the metadata. I can create my own templates. This is the metadata editor. I can check the completeness of the metadata. Adding metadata to a DWG file as well, extremely easy. It's been in there, unfortunately, only in AutoCAD Map or Civil 3D. But remember, Map is a better AutoCAD. And that's another reason why it is a better AutoCAD, the who, what, where, why, how, and when of the information about my imagery, of my drawings, of. Right, questions? If there are no more, I want to thank you.